Okay, y'all, I'm going to give you just a quick 10-minute video to set us up for working on doing some research in class the next time we meet. So, we're going to take some time in class, so I want you to have this background information. So, first of all, in this class, as in all your college classes, there is an expectation that you will find research that's not just credible, but also academic in nature. Now, it is certainly possible to find credible resources out there that may not be the best for your paper in college. So, this is a skill that we're going to learn. There are two kinds of sources, primary versus secondary. And all that means primary sources include firsthand evidence. So, like if you're doing some kind of paper about psychology and, the link between anxiety and social media, and you find a psychology journal that has done a study. So that's a primary source. Like the authors of that journal conducted the study. Here's the data. Here's how many teenagers who had X amount of screen time, and here were their anxiety levels, right? That's a primary source. However, you could also have a secondary source. That would be an article written by somebody who references the statistics from that study. So they're writing a more general article about social media and anxiety, and they say, hey, look, according to this study by, um, you know, MIT or whatever, there's this link between social media usage and anxiety in teenagers. So that's a secondary source. You know, whether or not you have both primary or secondary in your essay, these are such short essays. I'm not going to be real picky about that. But you do need to know the difference between those types of sources. All right, the best and first place I would say you should look is the NJU databases. These resources are free and they're easy to access. And the great thing is, every source that you find within these databases is academic, it's reliable, it's going to be great for your essay. So let's talk about how to use them. I already walked through this once in class, but let me just remind you. So you go to North Greenville, you find the library page, and on that library page, there is, you click on databases and ebooks. And then you just use your North Greenville login, the same login and password you use to get into Blackboard or your student portal. It's all the same. And then it shows you a list of all these different databases. There are a few that I recommend, starting with Academic Search Premier, Academic Search Complete. Those are just real basic. They're going to pull up just kind of general articles about different topics. Issues and Controversies has more like recent topics. It's going to be more current information. Opposing Viewpoints and Context, that has some great kind of like pro con type articles that's helpful in the beginning of a research project. And then JSTOR Arts and Sciences is going to be that's like a little more hardcore, like if you're doing something having to do with education or psychology or medicine, um, like cloning or something like that, you would be able to find in JSTOR. Any of the databases can be used, and it's going to take some time for you to try your search in different places. And don't just settle for like the first five things you find. Like and this is going to take time. So you're going to have to try searching in different databases using different keywords. Like if you don't find something at first, try a different keyword search, and it's going to pull up something different. So don't give up if you don't find things right away. I will say too, we also have databases that are specific to a subject. Like we have some that are specific to psychology or medical studies or Christian studies. If you're doing something about missions and church and Christian living, like we have some that are specific to that. So take some time to look at all the different databases that are available. Okay, so if you have to deviate from the databases, and which some of you will, especially if you're using a more contemporary topic. And that's okay. It's okay if you don't find everything in the databases. But here are a couple tips to help you evaluate just regular online sources. First of all, look at the web address. So .gov, .edu, .org addresses are generally more credible than .com. You may not know this, but the .com stands for commercial, and that means that website exists to make money. It's a commercial enterprise. And anytime someone is trying to make money, they have a very specific agenda for their audience. And it's more likely that that content is going to be biased. So just be more wary of anything that ends in a .com. .gov, .edu, .org, they exist for different reasons. They exist to provide information. So it's going to be a little different. I do ask that you avoid Wikipedia or any websites like about.com that allow users to upload and edit information. So those are just not appropriate. They can be helpful when you're just trying to learn more about your topic, but that's not going to be appropriate as a source in your paper. Avoid websites that don't cover topics from a scholarly perspective. And I know that's kind of an abstract thing to say. If you're not sure about that, just ask me. But if it just seems like more casual, like more like conversational, then that's probably not going to be great for your paper. Blogs and social media, generally, those aren't going to be great. But if the author has a specific credential or experience, and if they have some backing for what they're saying, that can be helpful. So, like if you are doing a paper on something having to do with church, Christian living, let's say you're on, John Piper's blog, right? He is a trusted author, a trusted name in that world, or, James Dobson, or something like that. Someone who is well known, who has published books, and so on and so forth. So, that can work. You just have to know the author. Let's see. Always look at the homepage, and that just gives you information about why that website exists. What is its purpose? And you also want to avoid websites that provide no research, they have no backing for their claims. So if they're not doing their research, then you probably shouldn't trust them as a source for your paper. Some just general categories to think about. Authority: is the author an expert in the field? If there is no author listed, then that is a flag for sure. Now, I will say, like on an encyclopedia website, like I think the Britannica website, they don't always have authors listed. That's a little different because it's a reference type of source. But if it's an article um, and there's no author, that's a little sketchy. So just be wary of those. Does the author support his claim? Like, can you fact check it? This is not hard to do in the age of Google. Like, you can always look up, double check information. Objectivity: is the author biased, right? Or is there any rebuttal that exists in their argument? Like, we have learned that good argument contains rebuttal. So they address the other side at all? So if you detect bias in the source, then it's not going to be a good source for you. Currency: is the information current? Now, there are times when it's good to use older information, especially if you're addressing something from a historical perspective. It can be really helpful to have information that's been around for a while, that has stood the test of time. But you also want some information that's current. Coverage: does the author provide enough information to be helpful? So, is the article, does it have a good scope? Is it well thought out? If you're unsure of the validity of a source, you can always check with me. Now, if that's happening the night before your paper's due, you might be in a little bit of a pickle. But I'm always happy to help you look at a website or an article and let you know if it's going to be a good source for your essay. When you write the essay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but just think through, like, why are you doing research on this? What is the research question? What do you already know about it? What information do you need to find? Who is your audience? What do they know about it? I will say this too. This is a good opportunity for me to say, just because you already know some detailed information about something doesn't mean that you don't cite it. That was a lot of negatives. But basically, let's say you heard a statistic somewhere, or this very specific thing about, you know, collegiate athletes being paid. Just because you heard it and you know it, like you still need to cite that source. Um, Primarily because you need to build credibility with your audience. Like, show me where you got that information. Okay. Don't just throw it in your paper because you heard it, you know it. You feel like, oh, yeah, this is general knowledge. It's probably not, especially if it's something that you're really passionate about. It probably needs to be cited. So that's something to think about. It's a little bit of a different topic, but hopefully helpful to you. All right, I'm also going to post this PowerPoint on Blackboard. So just make sure you've thought through all these things. And when we come to class together the next time, we will spend some time for you to research your topic and for me to help you and make sure you can find the resources you need.